A caution flag for the U.S. economy and your pocketbook. The Federal Reserve signals it is now leaning toward an interest rate increase to keep inflation in check. New moves in Congress today trying to keep guns out of the hands of children. And Eye on America, a walking miracle. You will see the pioneering pre-birth surgery that changed a boy's life.
This is the CBS Evening News. With Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. The headline out of today's Federal Reserve meeting is no hike in interest rates, at least not yet. But perhaps the more important news is found between the lines of this Fed report. CBS's Anthony Mason tells us the central bank indicated it now believes the threat of inflation is growing more serious.
He didn't have an interest rate hike in his pocket, not today, but Alan Greenspan did send up a warning flag.
The Fed is not happy with the inflation picture.
The Federal Reserve formally declared it's tilting its policy towards raising interest rates if our red-hot economy does not cool down.
The Fed is focusing on is the low unemployment rate, down to 4.2%. To get that down to 4%, we'll have such a tight labor force that inflation will kick in.
Inflation, the Fed's sworn enemy, appeared to rear its ugly head in the first quarter when gas prices caused a spike in the consumer price index. But housing start statistics out today showed a decrease of 10%, a sign the economy could be slowing.
What has to happen for the Fed to move is a continuation of growth that scares them.
But higher interest rates scare the stock market because they make bonds more attractive investments. But many economists, like former Fed Governor Lyle Gramley, believe interest rates could go up as much as half a point before the year is out.
It isn't going to kill the stock market, but it's certainly going to induce a bit of caution.
So Wall Street is now on red alert.
Today's message, any hint of inflation?
The Fed might pull the trigger.
Of course, for most of 97 and 98, the Fed said it was ready to raise rates. In the end, it actually lowered them 3 times. The hammer is cocked, but the shot may not be fired. Dan?
Anthony Mason, thanks. There is a bit of a break tonight in the gridlock in Congress over gun control. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has late details on what is and isn't happening on Capitol Hill in the battle between Republicans and Democrats to address violence in the schools. Bob, what's happening?
Well, Dan, it is grinding along slowly, and there is partisan bickering every step of the way. But the news is the Congress is inching toward tightening the gun laws. For example, this afternoon, the Senate passed one measure that will require child safety locks with the sale of handguns, and another measure which will put new penalties on people who furnish guns used in crimes. In addition, the new Republican Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, volunteered that he now favors raising the legal age to own a handgun from 18 to 21. Democrats say still more restrictions are going to be needed, but clearly the mood is shifting here. Congress has been very reluctant in recent years to even touch anything dealing with guns, but after the public outrage over Littleton in the last week, the mood is clearly changing now, Dan.
Bob Schieffer on Capitol Hill. Also in the wake of the Littleton, Colorado shooting spree, a court appearance today in Michigan involving an alleged conspiracy to commit deadly violence at a middle school. It was a hearing for the 2 youngest of the 4 accused, one of them not even in his teens. CBS's Cynthia Bowers is on the scene in Port Huron.
They are only 12 and 13 years old, Hollinwood's middle school students. But today, a Port Huron judge agreed the 2 boys represent a real threat to their community.
Court is going to set bond in this matter in the amount of $100,000.
While both boys sat quietly with their parents, prosecutors calmly detailed a chilling plot they say was much more than lunchroom talk.
They put together a conspiracy that involved assault weapons, involved pipe bombs. They had set out to murder random targets.
With school reopened under tight security, community leaders argued against bail, even though no weapons were found, claiming these boys should not be allowed back on the streets of their terrorized town.
You can't underestimate how much fear there is out there.
Fear you can see in the eyes of a mother. Sandy Alexander's sons, both special ed students, were reportedly among those singled out as targets.
If I could, I'd be there with them holding their hand, but I can't. So I'm just afraid for them. I'm afraid for all the kids. It's not just mine, it's all them kids. They don't deserve any of this.
But the mother of one of the accused children says she doesn't believe her son is capable of killing.
He's been an honor roll student since 3rd grade. He's never been in trouble. I just feel that he was with the wrong group at the wrong time.
That may be, but her son and 3 other students here at this middle school could face life in prison if convicted. A tough sentence, but not enough to allay fears in a community that suddenly realizes it is just as vulnerable as everywhere else. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Port Huron, Michigan.
On the 56th day of NATO's air war, a spokesman in Belgrade said today Slobodan Milosevic is, quote, ready to cut a deal, unquote. Apparently one that would leave him in power and leave Kosovo part of Yugoslavia. This came as the United States released 2 Serb prisoners of the war. They released them from a U.S. base in Germany. The United States says this was not a payback for the release of 3 U.S. soldiers earlier this month. Inside Serbia, some signs of crumbling morale. The government confirmed reports of violent protests in 2 towns by thousands of people opposed to sending more draftees into Kosovo. The protests began when the bodies of 7 soldiers were returned to their hometown. Among the NATO allies, a new debate has broken out over the need for ground troops. Britain is leading the charge, arguing that only a ground invasion can clear the way for refugees to return to Kosovo by winter. CBS News London correspondent Tom Fenton has this report.
British forces in Macedonia are battle ready and frustrated that NATO is not ready to order them into Kosovo. Their commander knows that deploying ground troops is the only way to make sure that the refugees return home before winter.
The sense of urgency, absolutely. But, whether it's this week or next month or whatever, we just need to bring the conflict to a successful and rapid resolution.
British Prime Minister Tony Blair shares that urgency and the belief that ground troops must be used in the conflict over Kosovo. He was greeted as a hero in Albania today because he's urging President Clinton to make the hard decision to risk soldiers' lives to help them.
They are our cause, and we must not, and we will not let them down.
In the rush of diplomatic activity this week, Britain's voice is a lonely one in pressing NATO to send in troops without a peace agreement. Tony Blair's not just talking. He's put 3,200 more ground troops on immediate standby and has approved plans to mobilize up to 20,000 Army reservists in the event of a large force being sent into Kosovo. It would be the biggest call up here since the Korean War. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
On the other side of the argument, Germany's Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder today called the use of ground troops in Kosovo, quote, unthinkable. As best anybody can make out, the United States is somewhere in the middle. While some Army leaders have pushed for a ground force, President Clinton says the air war is working and that there's no need for an invasion now. CBS's Scott Pelley is at the White House. Scott?
Dan, this evening, senior White House officials are saying that the president has no intention of committing ground forces in Kosovo, at least not in combat. The president said in the Oval Office this morning that NATO ought to stick with the air campaign, but then he seemed to leave other options open.
I and everyone else has always said that we intend to see our objectives achieved and that we have not and will not take any option off the table. But we are making progress, and I'm convinced that we will achieve our objectives one way or the other.
In diplomacy today, the president of Finland brought the United States and Russia together for talks. The goal is to convince Russia to adopt NATO's demands so that the Russians, in turn, will convince their ally Milosevic to capitulate. No resolution is expected soon. In fact, refugee camps are now being outfitted for winter, and work is underway to find space for another 700,000. That would mean the complete depopulation of Kosovo. Frankly, the White House is surprised the war has gone on as long as it has. One of the president's closest advisors told us that when it all began, they expected it to last 1 month. We're now nearing 2 months, and the White House is saying there is no strategy other than more of the same. Dan?
Scott Pelley at the White House. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News. A major car maker goes on trial, accused of putting profits before safety. An up-close look at the new Bradley fighting vehicle, Campaign 2000 model, and a new weapon in the Cold War.
I never met a dog I didn't like, which is a good thing, considering some of the occupational hazards my friends put me through. This is mine. This is Herman. Ooh, what do we have here? A tick. That's why I choose Frontline for these guys. Frontline's the best, because it's the only one that protects them from fleas and disease-causing ticks, too. Sorry I kept you waiting, no matter who your best friend happens to be.
For fleas and ticks, veterinarians choose the Frontline of protection.
Okay, one more time.
Up. You're not taking that laxative. Look, the label says it may cause cramping.
All these laxatives have stimulants that may cause cramping. Phillips doesn't. It's stimulant-free.
What a rare bird.
She sure is. Phillips, effective relief without harsh stimulants.
If you can do this, you can make wood beautiful with Minwax. And if you can do this, you can give wood lasting protection. Turning a house into a beautiful home is as easy as turning to Minwax.
Want to have a better barbecue? Try something new. Bush's barbecue flavor baked beans. Roll that new beautiful bean footage. They're slow simmered in herbs and spices until they're just dripping with authentic barbecue flavor. Only one other soul knows this recipe, and to keep it a secret, he's made a few, well, requests. Anything else, Duke?
A couple of steaks would be nice.
Bush's, our secret family recipe, is baked into every bean. Now in new barbecue flavor.
This was opening day in a landmark lawsuit over automobiles. At issue, do millions of Ford cars have a potential ignition system problem? CBS's Bob Orr broke the key facts on this story a year and a half ago. CBS's John Blackstone has tonight's follow-up in court.
It's a big lawsuit over a small car part.
All right, here it is.
It's called the thick film ignition module. It was used in some 20 million cars built by Ford from 1983 to 1995. Attorneys suing Ford told jurors today a fault in the module meant that cars could stall repeatedly.
The dealer would pronounce the car fine, maybe suggest there was water in the gas tank, and they'd go on their way, only to have it happen again.
But the lawsuit claims that Ford understood exactly what the problem was. The computer chip mounted too close to the engine was overheating. This is one of the internal Ford documents that will be used as evidence in this case. It shows that the company knew back in 1986 about trouble with the ignition module, but determined that fixing the problem would cost almost $400 million. Ford says the module fails no more than any other car part, and that opposing attorneys are attempting to create a safety issue where none exists.
What they are trying to do is claim billions of dollars without showing any injury whatsoever.
The attorneys challenging Ford say they believe the sudden stalling has left many people injured, but that Ford has settled with them out of court. 2 years ago, a Sally Johnson told CBS News she was paralyzed in an accident when the Mercury Sable she was in stalled unexpectedly.
This problem with the car was something that they could have fixed had they chosen to.
Federal inspectors okayed the module in the 1980s, but they didn't see Ford documents the jurors will. Ford could be made to pay $3 billion in damages and even face something unprecedented, an automobile recall ordered by a judge. John Blackstone, CBS News, Oakland.
On the CBS Market Watch, gasoline prices may have topped out. The government says they're averaging $1.14 a gallon, same as last week. A Japanese company today showed off the world's first mobile video phone, the latest distraction for drivers. And billionaire Warren Buffett is betting dollars to donuts. He's bought a stake in the company that owns Dunkin' Donuts.
That meeting is going to start whether I get rid of this headache or not. So I took Advil Liquid Gels. Stronger and faster than extra strength Tylenol on tough pain. It's the only pain reliever with liquid inside. Advil Liquid Gels. Stronger and faster.
I should have used Preparation H.
If you had, you wouldn't be suffering now. Preparation H helps stop itch and further irritation with a soothing layer of protection.
I should have used Preparation H.
Stops itch, stops irritation.
Nicorette introduces a breath of fresh air. New mint-flavored Nicorette gum. The same craving-fighting power of Nicorette and the flavor of mint. Nicorette helps you control your cravings so you can break free from smoking. And now you can choose your flavor. Now isn't that a breath of fresh air?
Nicorette helps you fight your cravings, your habit, your way. You can do it. Nicorette can help.
The man accused of killing State Senator Tommy Burks went to court today. He says he wants you to pay for his defense. We'll have the story coming up at 6.
When it comes to drug treatments with wide appeal and high profit potential, faster, better relief from the common cold is near the top of the list. Well, the latest entry in the cold remedy sweepstakes is the subject of a new study out tonight in the Journal of the American Medical Association. CBS's Elizabeth Caledon is here with the hot new facts on treating colds. Elizabeth?
Dan, it's an experimental drug called Tremacamra, and researchers say it's highly effective in knocking out the common cold in ways never seen before.
This is probably one of the best drugs that we've tested in terms of common cold treatment.
Dr. Ronald Turner demonstrates how he infected study participants with a cold virus. The Tremacamra was administered before and after infection. In both cases, the drug relieved multiple symptoms. The typical cold is caused when the rhinovirus enters the nasal passage and latches onto cells. Tremacamra is the first drug to create a decoy, which blocks the cold virus before it has a chance to attack healthy cells.
I thought it worked great. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a wonder drug.
This is not a cure for the common cold. Tremacamra did not prevent infection, but the way this drug works is being hailed as an advance that has the potential for prevention, Dan.
Elizabeth Caledon, thanks. President Clinton said today the landslide election of Ehud Barak in Israel raises new hope for peace in the Middle East. The president met at the White House with King Abdullah of Jordan, whose late father, King Hussein, helped draw up the current U.S.-sponsored peace plan. In Jerusalem today, Barak visited the grave of the late Yitzhak Rabin and promised to fulfill his legacy. Barak is considered the political heir of Rabin, whose peacekeeping efforts led to his assassination by an Israeli in 1995.
The best way to cure athlete's foot so it won't come back is here. New Lamisil AT. So powerful, it does what no other brand can do. These take 4 weeks of treatment to kill the fungus. Lamisil AT is so powerful, with just 1 week's use, it stops the itching and burning and cures athlete's foot between the toes. So powerful, a clinical study showed 3 whole months later, users were still athlete's foot free. Now without a prescription. New Lamisil AT, the best way to cure athlete's foot fast so it won't come back.
Hey, Dad, what are you doing up?
Reliving your mother's stuffed peppers.
Heartburn again, huh? What are you taking?
Tums, and I'm back for more.
You still taking that stuff? Look, Dad, take a Pepsid AC. 1 tiny pill controls acid all night.
So I can get some sleep.
Next time, take one before dinner, and you can stop heartburn before it starts.
Before it starts?
You don't see me suffering, do you?
What are you guys doing now?
Nothing, dear. We were talking about your peppers.
Peppers, yeah.
I got some in the fridge.
You can sleep heartburn-free with Pepsid AC.
Fortunately for Millie, Dr. Espinoza was in the office early, while someone else was drafting the marketing plan to sell his home. At 11, he was making his rounds, instead of visiting his title company. At 1 p.m., he was giving Pam good news, instead of checking for disclosure documents. And by the time Dr. Espinoza wrote the day's last prescription, someone else was at his home meeting a prospective buyer. You've got a life. We let you live it. We're realtors. Real estate is our life.
Try new Genuine Bear Gel Caps, the only gel cap that can help save your life. New Bear Gel Caps, powerful pain relief, and so much more.
Wednesday, how does a con artist know he's made it big? He shows up on 60 Minutes, a con man special, followed by Madonna on an all-new 60 Minutes 2, Wednesday.
On CBS's Campaign 2000 Watch, new data out today shows Democratic presidential hopeful Bill Bradley's family assets top $5 million. That's about 5 times higher than rival candidate Vice President Al Gore. Bradley trails Gore in the very early going in the polls, but he's mounted a full court press that he believes over the long pull will be successful. So what is Bradley's strategy? CBS's Phil Jones went one-on-one with him.
Bradley scores again.
Bill Bradley has been taking his shots since the 60s as an All-American at Princeton and as an NBA champion with the New York Knicks for 10 years. Now the question is, what kind of a shot does old number 24 have against Al Gore?
I think I have a very good shot. How are you? Good to see you.
On the stump in New Hampshire, Bradley, who also played politics for 18 years as U.S. Senator from New Jersey, is finding disgruntled Democrats who are looking for an alternative to Gore.
Not sure that I trust what Gore says.
Trust is the theme of every Bradley speech.
I think one of the key things here is trust. And by that I mean trust in the president as an individual. And whether rightly or wrongly, justly or unjustly, we have to repair that trust.
Bradley is avoiding stands on all the tough issues until this fall. So those coming out to see him are left with vague answers to their questions, like, how's he different than Al Gore?
One of them is life experience.
What's that mean?
That means that I had a life before I got into politics.
Bradley is doing it the old New Hampshire way, retail politics, house to house. He says there's never been a better time in American history to run for president, and that he can taste it in his mouth.
You got to look people in the eye, they got to listen to you, and they either ratify you and support you or they don't.
In New Hampshire and across the nation, Bradley is way behind Gore in the polls and in money. But his followers claim stories of a Bradley boomlet are right.
We'll push him over the top in the primary. There is a Bradley movement.
So, with the sun now setting, I have to go to Nashua.
Bradley knows he must win the nation's first primary next year, or the New Hampshire sun will set on his presidential dreams. Phil Jones, CBS News, Amherst, New Hampshire.
Up next on the CBS Evening News, we take you to the new frontier of medicine, surgery on a fetus to fix what could have been a crippling birth defect.
Nancy will have to see from near to far almost 1,000 times today. Her eyes will focus on 40 labels, 60 charts, and 100 smiles. And in all that time, she'll never once think about the science that allows her to focus instantly at all distances. Nancy just knows that her Verilux lenses help her see better. And for her, that's a very comforting thought. Verilux, the comfort of better vision. For more information, call toll-free 1-800-VERILUX.
Okay, people, this is a phone, and this is $1. You still with me? Well, that's good. Now dial this number, and all your long-distance calls from home could cost less than $1. That's right, with 10-10-220, all calls up to 20 minutes are only 99 cents. Talk longer, and it's just 10 cents for each extra minute. No fees, no contracts. Am I right, Poochie? Just dial 10-10-220, then 1, then the number. Bottom line, you get up to 20 minutes on this for less than this. You got that? Good, because if I'm not mistaken, I think nature's calling my dog.
Announcing a new way to see, near and far, the way nature intended. The creator of AccuView, the most prescribed contact lens, is introducing the revolutionary AccuView bifocal contact lens. The first with pupil intelligent design, near and far. Get out of wearing glasses and get into life, both near and far. New AccuView bifocal. It's how you see things. Visit your eye care professional or call us for more information.
Somewhere there's an empty chair at a seminar. The Civic sedan from Honda. What about now?
In tonight's Eye on America, the first of two hard news reports from the cutting edge of surgical cures and treatments. Tonight's focus, the nation's leading serious birth defect. CBS's John Roberts has the facts on a pioneering technique to find and fix a defect before birth in our series about your health, New Frontiers.
At first, Lori and Nathan Smith of Provo, Utah, couldn't believe the diagnosis. Their unborn child had a serious birth defect.
When they said your baby has spinal bifida, obviously we were thinking worst case, and so we were pretty devastated.
So they've come to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville to embark on an experimental surgery that could change the course of their daughter's life before she's even born.
It gives her a chance. We don't have any large expectations. We have large hopes.
Spina bifida occurs early in the pregnancy when the spine of a developing fetus doesn't close properly, leaving the spinal cord and nerves exposed and damaged. That often results in paralysis below the waist. Half of all children born with this birth defect will eventually wind up in wheelchairs.
This is the baby's spine.
Using new 3D ultrasound, Dr. Joseph Bruner locates exactly where the problem is.
The lesion starts just below the level of the last rib in the middle of the baby's back and extends down into the tailbone. This is a worse than average lesion.
And that means trouble on another front. The opening in the baby's spine doesn't allow fluid in her head to circulate properly, resulting in a condition called hydrocephalus, which can cause brain damage. To stop the ongoing damage, Lori will undergo a delicate and dangerous operation.
We'll bring her back to you, Jason.
The worst possible outcome is that the baby could deliver so early that it would actually be severely injured from the prematurity or perhaps even die. Right over the spinal cord. Another number
It's an extraordinary procedure. The surgical team is actually operating on the fetus while she's still in her mother's uterus. They work quickly to repair and close the opening in her spine. While corrective surgery after birth can limit the most severe consequences of spina bifida, death and mental retardation, it cannot repair the damage done to the spinal cord. So until this procedure was pioneered, parents had a tough choice. Face the prospect of raising a child with multiple disabilities or terminate the pregnancy. In the 42 surgeries Dr. Bruner's team has performed, the results are encouraging.
The incidence of hydrocephalus has been decreased about 2/3. That's an incredible result.
Still unclear is how many of the children will be able to walk.
Everything went great.
Because the technique is so new. But if the steps of toddler Nicholas Garcia are any indication, there is reason for optimism. Nicholas was one of the first babies to have this fetal surgery.
He's like a normal child. Whoever sees Nicholas and doesn't know that he has spina bifida, well, that person will never know that Nicholas has spina bifida.
Nicholas is a symbol of hope for Lori and Nathan Smith, who are still awaiting the birth of their daughter.
Did you tell her I loved her?
Yes, I did.
Loved by parents who don't expect a complete cure, and whatever the outcome of surgery, will always consider her their miracle baby. In Nashville, I'm John Roberts for Eye on America.
Amazing science, enormously talented physicians. Tomorrow on this broadcast, part 2 from the new frontier, inside the womb to save the life of a twin. And that's part of our world tonight. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. We hope you'll join us here tomorrow night, same time, same station. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.
Coming up on News Channel 5 at 6. Until now, Byron Looper hasn't had much